three kickers to camp with you?
I think that's to be determined, quite honestly. So we'll see how it all plays out, and ultimately that's going to be Goody's decision. But that's something that we've certainly talked about.
Go ahead, Nolan.
Just how do you think Anders has kind of responded to just the extra competition?
Yeah, I think Anders had a pretty solid spring. Like I mentioned earlier, I think all these guys have kind of had their moments, but I think, particularly of late, he's done a really nice job.
Are you guys done today then?
Today is our last day, yes. Okay. Sorry to disappoint you. I know you wanted to be here tomorrow, but today is our last day. Typically in the past, what we've done is we've had the last day be dedicated to a team building event. And I thought just kind of with coming back a little bit earlier this year, we're coming back in 2 days earlier as a whole group. Obviously the rookies and the quarterbacks will be back even before that, but I thought it was important. We moved the team building event to last week. We had a bowling event that the guys seemed to enjoy, and just thought it was in everybody's best interest. We came out pretty healthy, I think, for the most part, and so we're giving them off tomorrow.
Now, what other adjustments have you had to make for training camp, practice schedule, and all that to accommodate Brazil and making sure they have?
Well, that's something that we're kind of going through right now. I should finalize all that by the end of the week.
With Preston, he's going into his 10th year. I think he still only missed one game ever. What impresses you most about how he does his business on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, he's obviously, anytime you play that long, I would think there's a little bit of luck involved, but the fact that I think he does a good job of knowing how to prepare his body, prepare his, prepare himself just for the rigors of the season. And so that's a testament just to how he goes about his business on a daily basis.
With today being the last day, and obviously it was very hot out today, did you still feel like, though, the energy from the guys and what you saw today for it being the last day was what you wanted to see?
Yeah, I think anytime you go into the last day, it's kind of like the last day of school. I think it's a little bit harder to keep their focus. And I think you saw that at moments in the practice, in particular, the 2-minute drive at the end, there was some sloppy play. So, I think there's a little bit of human nature. That's why you just got to keep reminding them to stay dialed in. And we still have a couple more meetings left. And so that was kind of the message at the end of it, is just stay locked in, and that time will come.
What do the next 5 weeks look for you? I mean, does a football coach take time to get away?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm sure some guys don't, maybe, but the guys I know usually try to decompress a little bit and get ready for the grind that is the NFL season. It's a long season, and certainly there's a lot of hours that go into that, so you kind of got to recharge the battery, so to speak, say your goodbyes to your family, and hopefully have some nice moments along the way. And but we'll be ready to roll once we come back July 17th.
What does a little bit look like? Is it like a week or 2 weeks? I'm asking for your itinerary, but.
Yeah, I think everybody's a little bit different. We afford, that's kind of why I like to bring our young guys back in a little bit earlier and have more like phase 2 type days, kind of half days for about 4 days. I think it's good for us as coaches as well to get back in the building. But most of the guys, everybody's on their own. What they're doing on a daily basis is kind of up to them at that point. But I think, most of the guys, this is what we do, and we love it, and you're always constantly thinking about different ways to do things, and, just different ways to get better.
There might be a difference, though, for somebody like Michael Pratt. He's young and ready to go. Would you want him then to maybe study film the most?
No, absolutely. Some of these guys, 100%, like they have to stay in the playbook. A lot of this information is new to them, and if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So you can take a week or so, let your mind kind of decompress a little bit, but for the most part, you got to stay dialed in. These guys will take their iPads with them, I'm sure, and be able to study tape. And I think it's a great opportunity for especially the young players to get back into the playbook and kind of go at their own pace. And hopefully they get a better feel for where they're at after, the 9 weeks. And, but you can't go get too far away from it.
Have you made any strides over the past few weeks of finding your best five up front on the offensive line?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's been some good work that's been put in. I think it's really important to work on the fundamentals, but the fact of the matter is, we're not in pads. And I don't think you'll really truly know until we get out there, we get pads on. I thought for the most part, our guys up front did a pretty decent job taking care of one another. There were some moments where you got to get on, whether it's the O-line or D-line, about just kind of the rules of engagement. We certainly don't want people bull rushing. It's harder to anchor when you don't have pads. But I think it'll kind of unfold as we get into camp, and especially as we get into the preseason games. We got 2 opportunities to, practice against somebody else. So I think it'll unfold for us in training camp.
Today I was watching Caleb Jones, Luke Tanu. These guys are so big. Can you talk about the progress that they've made, and do you think that they're getting close to where they could seriously compete for those jobs?
Yeah, I think both those guys have had moments, but I think like we just talked about, time will tell.
Hey, Matt, we asked a lot of questions about not necessarily having a clear-cut number one, but Jordan sure went to Romeo in the red zone a lot last year. He had a 3rd down catch today in 2 minutes. That was pretty critical. Where do you see him in his development and his connection with your quarterback?
Yeah, I think Rome's had an outstanding spring. I really do. And it's evident by the work that he puts in on a daily basis. He's in there in the morning catching off the jugs. He's one of the last guys to leave the building. He's very deliberate about the work he puts in, and I think it showed. And we challenged him on a couple of things that we thought he could really do a better job with, and just continuing to stress the importance of opening up his stride, and he's embraced that, and I think you've seen that, and I think he's had a lot of great moments. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a bad day that he's had out there. He is definitely improving.
Now, what have you seen from Brenton Cox in year 2 from the very untrained eye? It looks like he's playing a little bit more physical out there.
Yeah, he can. One thing that he could always do, he can rush the passer, and I think, again, don't have pads on, so it'll really show itself as we get into training camp. But I think that's why he made such a great impression on us a year ago, and certainly the scheme's a little bit different, and we're just letting him pin his ears back and go, and he's embraced that.
Speaking of untrained eyes, it looks like Adrian Cooper makes a lot of plays in the backfield. Obviously, it's harder without watching film to tell how he does the rest of the plays, but what have you thought of his progress?
Yeah, I think he's another guy that he's going to have to build on what he's already put out there. I think this 5 weeks is going to be absolutely critical for him in terms of not only the mental but the physical, and making sure he's taking care of his body. I think a lot of these guys, after the draft process, they're not in the best physical condition because, like, Coop took a visit here. I don't know how many visits he had, but it's a different style of training. You're getting ready for the combine. You're trying to go run your fastest 40, the underwear Olympics, if you will, and it's different when you start playing ball. So I think this is a critical time for, in particular, his case. He's got to keep building on the foundation that he's laid, and we expect him to come back even better and having a better knowledge base on what is required of him. There was one play in particular today that I thought for sure we were going to get him on, and he did a heck of a job with it. And I was kind of teasing the coaches, did you preview him for that play? And they did not. So that's a credit to him and just how engaged he's been and how locked in he's been throughout the course of the offseason.
How much time have you spending on defense? I saw you watching some drills today, and I'm thinking you're probably learning things from your new coaches that are in, but there's also things you probably discussed about that you think you want to have checked off.
Yeah, I've learned a ton of football this offseason, just spending time with those guys. I do think it's a little bit more of a challenge for guys, when you call the plays. Now, that's why I love this time of the year. You let Steno and our offensive coaches kind of handle the offensive play calling. I'm certainly looking over everything, but it does afford you more opportunities to go on the other side of the ball and to get with Rich and our special teams coaches. And so, it's been a productive offseason.
You guys will continue to move Jordan Morgan around on the line when you get to camp in the preseason, or would you rather him hone in on maybe a couple spots? I think he's playing all four. But
I bet you'd like to know that answer, Rob. No, I think for what you guys have seen, we've done that with most of our players, and once we kind of get closer to settling in on who those 5 guys will be, I think, you'll see them at that position more and more often.
Is it rare for a rookie at that position to have so much on his plate early? Do you have to balance that?
I think that, there's definitely, it's not an exact science, so you got to kind of take into account where he's at and where you need to push him to. But I do think it's long-term, it's in our best interest to train guys like that, because you just never know what's going to transpire throughout the course of the season. So if it's the first time that they're kind of going through that in season, you're in a world of hurt. I think we've all seen it throughout the course of the, at least my time here, in terms of how much juggling we've had to do up front. So, and I think it's bode well for us through the course of time. Now, I think starting out, when you do it, there's some challenges along the way.
You asked about the video boards yesterday. Now that you've had 2 days with them, what do you think of them? And do you find yourself looking at those frequently?
Not frequently, but I do think they were good. I mean, just the feedback I got from our coaches and players, I think we need to figure out exactly where to put them, because there were certain instances where it's very difficult to see the board. So that's still, overall, I thought it was a favorable experience.
Will you use it in camp, Matt?
We will not. I don't want to use it in camp because I don't know who's in the stands.
you might use it during the regular season?
Yeah, that's what I anticipate.
Hey, Matt, I get you're not in pads, but you still see a ton as a coach. I get that it's about production, not potential, but do you think you have a good feel for what kind of football team you have as you break the off-season program? And if so,
I think we've laid a good foundation, and I think the guys, the things that we stress to these guys in terms of our communication, how close the connection can get, I think it's a good start. But it really doesn't matter once we come back to training camp. It's about what we do moving forward, and again, it's just the foundation. So, I feel really good about the group in there, and hopefully that over the course of these 5 weeks, the challenge to these guys is you cannot come back the same player. You got to come back better. You got to come back in better shape, and you got to come back better mentally.
do you think, your predecessor made a comment once upon a time that said the biggest challenge would be handling success. You guys obviously had success in the second half of last season. Do you think it's different when you have a team that maybe came into the year without many expectations, as opposed to what you guys did last year? People are going to expect you to be a good football team. Is there a different dynamic, especially with young guys?
I just think that you got to do your best to kind of ignore the outside noise and just get to work. And I think, that's where the confidence is built. It's through the work and just going out there and competing together, coming close together. But just my advice to those guys is you can't worry about what everybody expects from you. It's what we expect of each other.
More, please.
Matt, with drafting Pratt, did you see that maybe add a little extra fire to Clifford at all?
I think he's a self-starter. He's got that intrinsic motivation. So I don't think whether we drafted Pratt or not, it's going to change his mindset. Now, I think certainly when you have the more competition you have, I do think it can bring out the best in you. So, but in terms of the mindset, the way he attacked it, I saw him all last season. He attacked it as if he were the starter. So I would expect nothing less from him, and I don't think his mindset has changed at all.
Matt, is Rochelle okay? He got kind of the wind knocked out of him at the end?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be all right. So but that was kind of why we ended it right there, because it was gonna be 4th down, and I was just, it's kind of a crappy way to end the day, but I thought all in all it was a pretty solid day.
Do you anticipate Valentine and Stokes maybe rotating at some point during camp?
We'll see. We'll see. We'll let them compete, and we're going to play our best players. And but like I said, I think yesterday I feel really, really confident with the group that we have. And there's going to be some unforeseen things that happen, but luckily we got a lot of depth, in particular at that position.
Matt, congratulations on your induction into the Beef Hall of Fame too.
Joe said something to me about that, McKillop, but yeah, interesting. I think I played in like one real game there, so yeah, I lit it up. So you guys have a good one. Have a good summer.